Hello and welcome. This is Jonsbo HP400S, which is a 40mm height CPU cooler. You can find this relatively cheap on AliExpress. Jonsbo has been manufacturing CPU heatsinks for a while, but they are more known for PC cases. There is also Jonsbo HP400. Both are very similar, but the S version is 4mm taller. It's probably better to get the S version. The bottom is pretty rough. It's clearly not a mirror finish. The surface is so rough that I can see my nail leaving a trail when my nail moves across the surface. Thermal paste is supposed to fill the gaps and help with heat transfer, but I do feel that the finish quality leaves a lot to be desired. The heatsink is also very light. It feels like paperweight. Granted, this is a small heatsink to begin with, but it just feels so light. I've reviewed a fair number of CPU heatsinks now, so I can sort of tell that this heatsink won't be able to contain Intel 265K, which is a 125 watts CPU. It should be able to work with 65 watts, but there are hardly many of them in 2026. AMD does offer them, but their 65 watts are in fact 88 watts. Intel does also offer 65 watts, but they are somehow way more expensive than their K counterparts. In other words, we are sort of stuck with higher wattage CPUs in 2026. Meanwhile, installing this heatsink was easier said than done. My main issue with it was the 4 long screws. They were loose and were moving around freely, which was for compatibility with LGA 1200 apparently. Because they were so loose and were moving around freely, I had a hard time aligning them just right for them to get into the 4 holes. This also meant that I ended up using thermal paste instead of my usual thermal pad. The pad was moving around too much, unfortunately. Using Blender application to fully load the Intel 265K, it looks clear that this heatsink just cannot handle the heat. The CPU was thermal throttling heavily. To be fair, I don't think anybody expects this CPU to be able to handle a 125 watts CPU anyway. As for its noise, I will leave the judgment to you since noise is pretty subjective. Personally, I find it pretty loud, and the sound meter does back me up. But there are two kinds of noises. One that's tolerable, and the other is high-pitched noise that gets on people's nerves. The noise I am hearing from this heatsink is the former. So, the big question is, what is the ideal wattage for this heatsink? After tinkering with it a bit, it looks like 65 wattage is ideal for this heatsink. It does seem to have a bit of headroom at 65 watts, so mayhaps it could even handle 90 watts. However, you do have to keep in mind that this heatsink is being tested in open. Once in a case, expect the temperature to go up by around 10 degrees. If you consider that, then 65 watts is probably the maximum this heatsink can handle. In the end, this heatsink performed within expectations in spite of my concerns earlier on with the rough surface and its light weight. They need to work on the mounting mechanism though. I never had smooth experience with installing a heatsink from below, but heatsinks of this height are forced to use this method since there is no room for proper mounting mechanism. Anyway, my final verdict on this is a pass. Noctua NH-L9 is so much better for the same size. You do have to pay a bit more, but the quality difference is no joke. Thank you for watching and see you next time.